going to read this book called Ludwig, the Dog Who Snored Symphonies. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to see what this book is about. It sounds so funny. Ludwig, the Dog Who Snored Symphonies. Story by Robert Krauss. Once upon a time, in the town of Dusseldorf, there lived a poor piccolo player named Emil. He played his piccolo on street corners, earning a meager living from the coins passers-by tossed into his hat. His faithful dog Ludwig was his only friend and kept him company as he played. After playing all night, Emil and Ludwig would share a cup of coffee at an all-night cafe. "Don't worry, Ludwig," said Emil. "Someday I shall finish my symphony and become rich and famous, and we shall have a wonderful life." Then they would climb the winding stairs to the little attic studio they called home. Emil would take off his shoes, tighten his ragged scarf, and work on his unfinished symphony. Emil worked and worked until dawn, but when he finally put down his pencil, he had written only one note, and that was sour. Ludwig slept at Emil's feet and snored through it all. The next night, Emil worked on his symphony again, with Ludwig sleeping and snoring at his feet. But again, he could only compose one note, and a sour one at that. The next night, it was more of the same thing. "At this rate, it will take me 200 years to complete my symphony, and I will be too old to enjoy it," moaned Emil, pulling his hair out in clumps. Ludwig snored on. "It's Ludwig snoring, that's the trouble," he groaned. "Who can compose in the middle of all this snoring?" Ludwig, not realizing all the commotion he was causing, snored on and on. Soon, the only thing in Emil's head was Ludwig snoring. Suddenly, Emil's face lit up. "Ludwig snoring is beautiful," he exclaimed. "Ludwig snoring is a symphony." So Emil grabbed his pencil and paper and wrote down the notes of the symphony Ludwig snored. The next day, he went to the maestro of the symphony orchestra to show him the symphony Ludwig had snored. Emil played part of it on his piccolo while the maestro hummed. Ludwig wagged his tail contentedly. "Why, this is magnificent," said the maestro. "I will perform it with my symphony immediately. You are a genius." "Not I," said Emil. "Ludwig is the genius. He snored this symphony. I just wrote down the notes he snored." "Extraordinary," said the maestro, shaking Ludwig's paw. "My congratulations to you, Ludwig. You are a genius." Ludwig wagged his tail happily. Ludwig's symphony was performed by the Dusseldorf Symphony Orchestra and was a great success. Ludwig and Emil listened from a box. It was the first time a dog had ever been allowed in Symphony Hall. See them there in the box. That night, Emil and Ludwig went home, tired but happy. They staggered through the after-theater traffic and narrowly missed being hit by 2 taxis and an omnibus. They climbed the winding steps to the little attic studio. Once inside, Ludwig fell fast asleep at Emil's feet and began to snore. Quickly, Emil grabbed a pencil and paper. 1 hour later, Ludwig had snored his second symphony. Wow, he's working hard. Symphony after symphony, as Ludwig did a lot of snoring. And soon Ludwig had snored 8 symphonies. Each one was performed by the symphony orchestra and was hailed as a masterpiece. Emil and Ludwig were able to afford a nicer garret and better food. They also saved a little money and helped their less fortunate neighbors. Dog owners from all over, hearing of Ludwig's success, copied down their dog snores and brought them to the maestro of the symphony orchestra. But they weren't symphonies, they were just dog snores. The maestro's waiting room was crowded with masters and their dogs, waiting to show their dogs' compositions to the maestro. Each one was worse than the last. They weren't symphonies, they were just dog snores. The difference between your dogs and Ludwig's, said the maestro, is talent. There is only one Ludwig, and the world is eagerly awaiting the performance of his latest and greatest symphony, number 9. He is hard at work on it, or fast asleep as the case may be. So please, all you dog owners, take your pets home and enjoy them for what they are, pets, not composers. Emil and Ludwig were hard at work on Ludwig's next symphony. That was the trouble. Ludwig was hard at work when he should have been fast asleep. All the excitement of his sudden success had made him so nervous he couldn't sleep. And if he didn't sleep, he didn't snore. And no snore, no symphony. Ludwig tried to bark his symphony, but it just came out dog barks. He tried to growl his symphony, but it just came out dog growls. He tried to tap his symphony with his tail, but it just came out tail taps. He tried to click out his symphony with his teeth, but it just came out teeth clicks. Finally, Emil tried to write his symphony for him, but Emil could only write one note a night. At last, it was the morning of the day the Unsnored Symphony was to be performed, but no symphony. Then it was the afternoon of the day of Ludwig's Unsnored Symphony was to be performed, but no symphony. Then it was the evening of the day of Ludwig's Unsnored Symphony was to be performed, and still no symphony. 10 minutes before curtain time. It's too late, moaned Emil. We must now do the only honorable thing left to us. We must appear at Symphony Hall and tell the audience to go home. So Emil and Ludwig staggered through the heavy theater traffic to Symphony Hall, narrowly missing being hit by several taxicabs and an omnibus. At last, Emil and Ludwig staggered through the stage door and onto the stage to make the announcement that Ludwig's ninth symphony was not finished. They were both so tired that they fell asleep right on stage in front of everybody, and Ludwig began to snore. He snored his ninth symphony in person in front of an enthusiastic audience. The musicians, as well as the audience, listened spellbound to the melody, and the wind instruments carried the tune until the great hall swelled with the sound of Ludwig's music. When the symphony was over, Ludwig received a standing ovation, which woke him up. He caught the roses that were tossed to him and graciously acknowledged the applause doubly earned for the symphony he had composed as well as performed. From that night on, Ludwig snored his symphonies in concert halls all over Europe. Critics everywhere hailed him as one of the greatest musical geniuses, be he man or dog, of this or any age. The end. Thanks for reading with me. I just wanted to point out something that I noticed about this book and these people on this page. I think it's a little bit of stereotyping. Like, I don't think people who live in places where cactuses grow always look like that or wear hats like that all the time. People when it's cold out, they might wear fur like that, but not all the time. I just wanted to point that out. Thanks for reading with me. Bye.